All right, back again after some major travails for our Zoom setup. All my fault, of course. But we're back again for the second half of the season 4 season finale, and we're starting off at about let's see, it's going to be 39, about 39 on your uh, ticker for if you're replaying it that way. If not, it's simply the place where Shamil and Yusuf are leaving Lazarus's house, and Thomas has spoken to them in the courtyard, and they're walking away. And that's where we finished up last week, and where we're going to start right now. So, see you in a few minutes. See. All right, so we've ended the finale, which was just really sudden. Did you all feel like it was sudden?
No,
No.
I felt like it was a logical place to end.
Yeah. There's so much ahead.
Yeah.
I guess so. I kind of expected him to go into town and have it end there. Like he was riding, and then it stopped when he, yeah. Well,
as he goes through the gate, didn't stop it.
yeah, with all the people screaming and all that stuff.
Yeah.
All right, what grabbed you? I saw quite a few things going on here.
I caught something towards the end. It was when he was saying that he loved everybody, but Judas was okay. Judas was looking off into space like he wasn't really interested or wasn't really paying attention or something. It had been the angle, but looked like they were focusing on him, not looking at Jesus, but looking away.
That's what I thought too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess that's they're I think they're doing a good job of again, I think we spoke about it last week, where Joseph is being honest, right? He's coming at his disagreement with Jesus very honestly. He believes that the Messiah is going to be like David, which is the belief in the population. Really, there is no other image for the Messiah at this point in time, except for David and Moses. Now we all know there is a third image of the Messiah. That's Jesus. They find that in Isaiah and Ezekiel, and but it's not grasped by the people because it's so anticlimactic. It just in fact a lot of it was written off as small events that took place in Jewish history. Then when we look back now at the explanation of those events, they don't make much sense. They just were applied. They said this must be applying to this right now. So people were looking for Moses or David because those two people were liberators. And they figured, the Messiah is going to come like Moses and have the spiritual power of God in his staff and be able to wipe out whole armies with, natural disasters and unnaturally controlled. And or like David, he just, my hundreds kills thousands, my thousands kill tens of thousands. And David never lost, and they always won, and it ushered in the golden era of Israel. So Jesus is not what 99% of the people want or expect, and Judas, of course, is one of them. So he comes by it naturally. He's not an oddball, and he's confused. I think they've shown that really successfully, that he really believes Jesus is the Messiah, really believes it, but he really doesn't understand what's going on because he just doesn't fit those two images. And of course, the image that you can tell the image that he comes down on is the David image. He's going to be the conquering king with the army and everything else. So I think he keeps waiting. He keeps saying, "Is this it? Is this it? Is it happening now? Is this it?" Remember when before he raised Lazarus, and after he raised Lazarus, before when they were making their own bread, and he's like, "This is it. That's when he was saying we should get the banks. We should start charging the people.
Yeah.
Okay, because we have to raise the money for the army." And he was saying that there's so many people coming now, then this is it, because with all these people coming, we can make a lot of money. We couldn't do it before, but now we have so many people. So this is it. This is the moment. And all the disciples went, nah. So he's done that, like, I think 3 times now. And I think that he's getting really fatigued emotionally and spiritually, that something's not right. And he doesn't know how to deal with it, which we know he'll come up with a way later on. What else did you see?
Joanna and Claudia are
Yeah.
very involved.
Yeah, I liked that. There is so Claudia is the wife of Pilate, right? And Joanna is that secret benefactor that's spoken about in the scripture. And we know the story. Her husband has taken a concubine, basically a mistress, and that happened, I think, in the second season, early in the second season, I think, when she came to the Sermon on the Mount. Remember, she showed up and they blocked her off and said, "No, what do you want?" And that was the first meeting. So she is none of this conversation is not in the scripture, right, between Claudia and Joanna. Now, Claudia did have at least a dream about Jesus, and she counsels Pilate later on not to get involved when Jesus comes to him to be crucified or to be killed. She goes to Pilate and says, "Don't do this. Don't do it. I had a dream." And remember that the Roman pantheon put a lot of stock in dreams. The gods communicated with people through dreams and told them things. And so she, as a person, would be looking for a dream and then believing the dream. You and I have a dream and we go, "I had a dream." But their condition was that these dream, you can't ignore a dream. When it has a message like that, it's one of the gods. So she got a message that Jesus was not shouldn't do it to him. Now, the implication seems to be in The Chosen that she has more than one dream. Like, this is a reoccurring event for her, and she's becoming more and more focused on it. By the time you get to Jesus, she's pretty bold. You don't have the wife of the governor come to the governor and tell him, "Don't do this or do this." It's not the place. But she's being bold enough to say that whole preamble, that old discussion where she said, "I wish I believed something strong enough to risk losing it. I don't have that." Well, she's getting there. She's going to risk her station, her relationship with her husband, by going to tell him later on not to do this thing and step out and say, "I kind of had this dream." So, but we see that she's kind of teetering on belief, maybe, in this. And in fact, the legend of Claudia after the resurrection was that this is the legend, right? Is that she became a Christian. She was baptized, and she left Pilate and did some of her own missionary work. So when we get later in the season to that section, I'll bring that up in a little more detail. But that's where they're headed with this. And you would think that what they're doing in The Chosen is they brought this kind of burgeoning beginning of faith in Claudia through the Spirit to Joanna. Because Claudia, she said, "I can't talk to anybody. I haven't got anybody to talk to." And Joanna said the same thing, really. We know that about her. She hasn't got anybody to talk to. And here they find themselves on a balcony together, really talking ostensibly about the exact same thing, just kind of from just a little bit of a different angle. So I like this. This is the artistic license that I think is so necessary for us to fill in the meat of the gospel. These presentations are so wonderful because they put skin on the bones. They put the stuff in between the events together. Like, they talk like normal, and they laugh like normal, and they get angry like normal, and they have all these things like normal, like you and I would have. Oh, here's a great place, and this is I'm bringing it back from last week, but when Lazarus was raised, do you remember the crowd's reaction? even the disciples' reaction, except for Mary, and of course Mary and Martha a little bit. Mary just stood there with a little smile on her face, but even the disciples like jumped back, right? And that woman screamed in the crowd, and people were gasping and moving away and trying to move away. We're so used to reading the raising of Lazarus and knowing the story that we really haven't spent any time thinking about the crowd. If that was even now, this is a period in time. That was a period in time where people just didn't get raised to the dead. It just didn't happen. And it's really graphic. This guy's in a tomb and he stinks. He's rotting. They know that. People know what rotting people look like because Rome is sticking people on crosses along the road and leaving them up there, and they can't take them down. So everybody knows what a rotting person looks like. It's pretty gross. And their mind is thinking this is exactly what he looks like. So when he waddles out in his rags, not only just the fact that he's alive again, but that, underneath those rags, he is the rotting man. He's rotting. He's like a zombie. He's been reanimated. There's some type of who knows what. And he's now coming out in his reanimated state. You remember when Jesus said, go unwrap him from those rags. And Martha went over and she went to take it off. And then they both looked at each other like, no, let's not do it. And then they undid his hands first and looked at his hands and they looked at each other because they looked at his hands like, his hands look normal. They're not all, skin falling off. And then they quietly, gently took off the face, and he was normal. And that's when the people kind of started coming back because he wasn't this rotting thing. He was fully, absolutely 100% brought back to life in every way, shape, and form. So this is a great image for us to think about it from this point on. And you can think retroactively back as far as you want about all of the actions of Jesus, even from the beginning with the little children when he was teaching them in the woods, when they came to visit him and he was making the little toys for them. Think back on what would have been the responses of the people at these events, the healings. What would be the energy behind it? What would be the talks, the dinner time talks after they saw the miracle and they're all at home? What would it be like over the dinner table? And then the next day to the next door neighbor? Would this be something that you would share with the neighbor, or, maybe not, because they're going to think I'm a whack job and I'm following a whack job and I don't want to be up that far out there yet. So there's a lot of energy behind this, rolling around in it, and now culminating with the triumphal entry into the city.
You definitely have the two people who were healed in Jerusalem out there every day proclaiming, what happened to them, and that's really, I wonder, we think that happened historically? And I'm sorry my camera won't work. I've got a new PC and it just won't work.
I had the same problem. Don't feel bad. We started late because I couldn't get the camera to go at all. Yeah, the answer, I think the answer is yes, because that's what would happen now. And the reason why it would happen now is because we're just people. We're just the same. When I went to Africa, I didn't know what to expect. I went to Uganda. I went to southern Uganda. There's no white people where I went. There are British expats and mercenaries in the north up by Kampala and a little bit out in the country around Kampala. But I went all the way north, 12 hours on a bus that was really something, to Kigezi, where there's nobody down there. Nobody. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what the people were like. And after about 3 weeks of living there and living and going out into the villages and staying with the people a lot, in fact, every day, they're just us. There is no difference at all. When I came back and I gave my first talk to the diocese, they asked what the people were like, and I said, well, look at your neighbor. Look at the person next to you. The people I met want to get up in the morning and achieve something and feel good about it and raise their kids in safety and have food that is good and a house that is nice. If their houses are mud and tree straw and like that, they're not finished homes, but they're happy. That's where they live. That's the kind of life they live. They're completely agrarian. They don't have machinery. They don't have factories to work in. Every family is their own boss because they make their own food. That's part of the problem there because they don't have any co-ops. Anyway, I found that they're the same. At the core level, you take away all the crappy politics, excuse me, and all of the I want to get more for me and mines. When it comes right down to talking to the people, they're us. There's no difference. We haven't changed. People haven't changed. Doesn't matter where you are in the world, they haven't changed. How we deal with that, with the being the same, that's different. And a lot of that's the product of where we come from. But the us, we're all made by God and we're all the same. Underneath it, it's all the same. So these people, I think they would be doing exactly what we're seeing, because that's what we would do. We would have people that were touched, that were healed, that had an impact, that would be talking about it and getting crowds, getting on TV, getting interviewed. The news would be after them to get them on TV. And it's not just they would be after them, but the people would be happy to talk, to speak about what happened. So yeah, again, I think they're filling in the flesh, they're filling in the meat in a very good way, in a way that we haven't seen before. I have not entertained these ideas before about, small evangelical movements going on in the temple. I haven't thought about that before. It's just, that hasn't been on my, and it's wild to think, I really haven't thought about the people outside of Lazarus's tomb recoiling in horror and being afraid. I hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
I think about the great event. He raised from the dead, and everybody goes, wow, oh, he's back from the dead. I never thought about people, screaming and running away. And that's exactly what would have happened. Especially in a society that has more superstition or more superstitious views than we do. Even greater. Yeah.
The other thing I wanted was there any truth to them saying they wanted to kill Lazarus? Was there any?
Yes, in the gospel, it actually says they plotted to kill Lazarus.
Oh, okay.
Right. Yep.
I don't remember that. So.
Yep. They exactly for that reason. And again, this is really cool the way that they work these kind of things in. Not everything that they put together is in the right place. Okay. Yeah. So, for instance, when Jesus was getting on the donkey and he said, "If you guys want to go, if you're gonna follow me," and Peter says, Lord, where will we go? You have the words of life." That happened after he had in actuality, that happened when Jesus was at the well giving the talk where he said, "I am the bread of life, and you have to eat my flesh and drink my blood to have a part of me." And there's people all around him listening said, this is too hard. This is a hard talk. This is hard. And they were leaving. They actually were leaving him. They weren't going to listen anymore. And Jesus looked at him and said, "Are you going to leave me too? Like them?" And Peter said, "No, Lord, where will we go? You have the words of life." So they moved that from that teaching of the bread of life moment and put it at the beginning of the triumphal entry. So that was a license, like artistic license, but I think that was fine. I think it needed to be put in there, and I think that if they had to move it for time or whatever, that was a good place for it. It works. The sentiment is exactly the same. The circumstances are different, but the sentiment's the same.
That scene when he was actually telling them goodbye to the relationship that he had with them, just them, and that really got me. And that was very emotional.
Yeah. Everything, like he was talking to his mom, Mary.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's about to change.
Mm-hmm.
She seems to know what's going on. more so than everyone else.
Yeah, there's so this would be a controversial decision, but remember that the chosen primarily is the ground of the chosen is primarily a Roman Catholic community, right? So this is more of a Roman Catholic perspective that Mary knew. Mary knew what was going to happen, knew all about the impending death and the resurrection and all of that. She knew that because she's immaculately conceived and she's blessed and she has greater understanding than the rest of us. So they work that in a bit. So I don't know if I would go that far, I think that she probably intuited more. I think she had a sense that there was these things were going to happen, that there had to be a crescendo to this, a big something, just because she knew her son. And she could see the trajectory that he was going, and he wasn't, you and I would be bopping around. We'd be like, I shouldn't go there. Let's go over there instead. It was all very smooth. He knew where he was, like when he said, when he rose Lazarus and the guys came to him, they go, oh, they sent a rider to the temple, and the priests are all going to be mad at you. And he's like, yeah, that's exactly what I expected. It's all very smooth, just going. So I think that she would definitely be closer, like Mary Magdalene is being portrayed. Mary Magdalene has a heightened spiritual connection. And she's more in tune with what Jesus is doing on a spiritual level. So even more with Mary the mother, that would be able to intuit this. This production, she's got a little bit more knowledge than that. But yeah, you picked up on that very well. Yep.
Mary Magdalene is really accepting everything.
Yeah.
She always has.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
When I talk about the peace which passes understanding, I mentioned in the sermon last week. That's what she's displaying.
Mm-hmm.
There's turmoil going around. The world's going to change. The world is changing. There's so much upheaval happening. People are raised from the dead, whatever it might be, and she's just there. That's the peace that God promised. That peace that passes understanding. I don't understand what's going on. He just raised somebody from the dead. I don't know what's happening here. But there's, in the midst of everybody else going, what's happening? She may be saying, what's happening? But there's peace. It's all okay because that's God. God's the first thing overlaying all things. So there's peace there. That's another good image. See how they're working these images in? I really like the way that they have done this. They're giving these examples of gospel stories, gospel images that Christ has shared with us. Okay, so we've got what other things? Let's see. Anybody else got anything else? Other stuff? I tried to write down a couple. I know we have to go. Let's see. Oh, another one I hadn't thought about. So it says in the scripture that they threw their coats on the ground. We know where they got those. Then they threw palm branches on the ground. Where did they get those? Did they just appear? Everybody just happened to have a palm branch in their hand and they threw it on the ground? No, they had a kid up there. Kid going up the tree, cutting the palm branches off, right? So that's a big deal. The people were seeing the coming of Jesus and they were thinking about the prophecy. And to fulfill this prophecy, they were doing this thing. They were reenacting the triumphal entry that's saying, this is him. And cutting the branches off the palm tree, which gives you shelter and break from the sun, that was a big deal.
They lost a tree, didn't they?
Yeah, it could very well, but they were saying that I'm willing to sacrifice this. I'm willing to do this thing for the king, for the coming of the Messiah. So I hadn't thought about that before. You just say, oh, they had palm branches. No, no, they had to come from somewhere. And you had Joanna in there,
Mhm.
you know, buying them, basically, getting them up and saying, just passing them out, like we do on Sunday with the palm branches. Just pass them out. They don't have to pay for them. Reaction bridal. Oh, the bridal thing. Okay. Now remember that the bridle has been passed on Moses to David and now to the son of David. That's not in the scripture, so this is another artistic a flourish, right? What's that, Alan?
Artistic license.
Yeah, yeah. It's what they're doing with the bridle as a physical prop, as a physical thing, is connecting Jesus with David with Moses. So they're using that as a way to make people think of the connection. Remember, I always say there's continuity in scripture. It starts from the beginning and it just keeps going. And when you see the connections, you know all the connections and it's all connected. There's no, flurry off this way and something off that way. And I don't know where it came from and where it went. It's all a continuity that flows. And that's what they're doing. They're putting the bridle in there to show the continuity. That from the time of Moses, this thing was planned for this day, the riding into the triumphal entry of Jesus and into Jerusalem. I think that was great. Why the Eastern Gate? Okay, gotta end. Why the Eastern Gate? So during the time of Ezekiel, remember Ezekiel? This was the time right before the coming of the Babylonians, the sack of Israel by the Babylonians. Jerusalem is in the south, is in Judah, basically, and Israel is just a little bit further, about a mile north of Jerusalem is the borderline between Judah and Israel. So the borderline hasn't been moved all the way south to be chopped in half by Jerusalem yet. And while Judah is not yet as corrupt as a country, is not yet as corrupt as Israel in the north. Remember, you got 2 tribes in Judah running, with much bigger tribes in Judah in the south, and you got the 10 tribes in the north. And the 10 tribes in the north have completely forsaken God. And all these prophets were going to them and saying, "You've got to come back to God, or you're going to get trashed." And they didn't come back. Well, even though Jerusalem was in Judah, Jerusalem had been infected because it was so close. Their people were coming from Israel to Jerusalem, trading and all kinds of stuff. And so the people in Jerusalem, more than the people in the country, isn't this the way the people in the cities get it first and then the people in the country get it later? They were getting corrupted. So right before Babylon swept down and crushed everybody, it came to Jerusalem, God left. The scripture says that God palpably left the temple, left the Holy of Holies. Now, we all know that God didn't live in the Holy of Holies, right? That wasn't like, God's little apartment there. But the reason why God would palpably leave was to let the people know what's happening. Let them know, let them feel, let them understand that this is a monumental event, that there is something has changed, that God has moved, that there's emotion here. God is smaller, right? And God does things. And because of that, God shows them things, right? So it says God left. God went out of the temple and left by the eastern gate and said, "I will not come back. I'm not, you're on your own. I've sent you prophets. I've tried to save you. I've tried to make it okay for you. You're doing your own thing. You've turned your back on me. You don't want me. The temple's a joke. I'm leaving because, I am not your God and you are not my people. So I am not going to come back until I come back, until the day of completion. Then I will come back." So when Jesus said, "I'm going to enter by the eastern gate," and everybody's going, "He's coming by the eastern gate," they were thinking of the prophecy that said God is coming back by the eastern gate. This is it. That's why the guy said, the donkey guy, he's like, "That donkey now?" it was like, this is huge. This is absolutely huge. This is not just a military event. This is a life-changing spiritual event that says that God has come back to claim God's people, that all is forgiven, and that life will be given back to them in this spiritual relationship. So that's why this is so darn important. I thought it was really cute that they quoted Zechariah, the prophecy from Zechariah, and then we find out a little bit later when Donkey Man shows up. Did you catch that? Donkey Man rode to the temple, and he went in to talk to the two people who are the evangelists. And what did they knew him. They went, oh, and they named him. Remember his name? Zechariah.
Oh,
They went, Zechariah. So I thought it was very cute. They were having, the words of Zechariah the prophet spoken to Zechariah the donkey man, right? So there was, again, that connection. They're making that continuity that these words, this man is named after Zechariah all those hundreds of years ago. And the continuity of these words are just bringing these two events together. This is the event squashed down. So really cool, really cool the way they're doing it. Let's see, Lazarus, and was there one more thing? Let's see, Ezekiel. Mary seems to know. That was so astute. More okay, raising Lazarus reaction. Okay, that's about. Those are my notes in the moment. I was jotting things down so quickly, like I do, and I think I covered them all. Yeah, I'm really looking forward. I hope that you want to continue this into the 5th season and keep going.
yeah.
As we get further, especially since after Christmas, starting back up in January, we're heading toward Easter. And so is season 5. Season 5 is going right, they're at the triumphal entry. So they're moving right into Easter. So we may be able to time it. It may work out that we are, in season 5 at a point where we're getting much closer. I don't know, but we'll see. All right. I will look forward to talking with you guys later on when we have start looking at our calendar, seeing if we can get back together. And I can't wait to see the next one.
Yeah.
We get the cliffhanger there, kind of abrupt.
We can't stop now, like Peter was trying to say a while ago. What are we going to do? Where else are we going to go?
Yeah.
We have to continue. To finish it out.
There you go, Al. There's the continuity for you.
See what I did there?
This was for us, man. This is for us. Oh, this has been great, guys. Really has. Really have enjoyed it. Look forward to doing more with it as we go. So no meeting next week, obviously.
Merry Christmas.
I think we have another thing.
Years.
And the week after that, I think we should take off as well. So we'll do the next week and the next week after that and get back together on the 3rd week. Now, I will get a hold of you before then. Put it in creator calling and maybe even give a call to a few of you and see if we can brainstorm the program. And then when we get together on that Wednesday night, we'll talk about it. See where we're going to go with it. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Like it.
God bless you all. Have a fantastic night. Say your prayers and have a good sleep.
All right. See y'all.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Y'all.
Good night.
Merry
Talk to you
Christmas,
Friday, Mom.
Merry Christmas.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Merry Christmas.